Marvel fans disagree about a lot of things. Who's the best character? Who's the strongest Avenger? Did Thanos have a point? But one thing that seems to be unanimous amongst fans is that The Incredible Hulk is one of the worst, or maybe more appropriately, one of the most forgettable MCU movies. And it makes sense. It's a movie that has largely been left out of the fabric of the MCU, and it felt like Marvel wanted us to forget it ever even happened. As we know, Ed Norton was replaced by Mark Ruffalo in the character's next appearance, and we never looked back. But with Shang-Chi bringing back such a big character from this movie in Abomination, I wanted to revisit this film and give it another chance. Because, like many of you, I haven't seen this movie since it released in 2008. And I don't think it's fair to continually judge this film on an opinion I formed 13 years ago, when the structure of this cinematic universe was just being formed. So, for the first time since I was 10 years old, I am going to rewatch The Incredible Hulk and answer the question, is it as bad as we remember? Time to find out. So, what were my first thoughts after watching The Incredible Hulk after 13 years? Oh my god, Ty Burrell is in this? There were clearly some things I did not remember, but was it as bad as what I do remember? Well, the simple answer is kinda and kinda not. Before I get into it, let me summarize the plot real quick to refresh your memory. Bruce Banner goes into hiding for 5 years after the Gamma accident that turns him into the Hulk. After his blood gets into a delicious bottle of cameo juice, General Ross finds him, recruits military guy Blonsky, and hunts him down. Bruce is able to escape and moves back to the States, where he reconnects with his old flame Betty Ross. General Ross, Betty's father, finds them and sends the army to take down the Hulk, this time with a super soldier enhanced Blonsky. Hulk escapes again and finds Mr. Blue, aka Samuel Stearns, the guy he's been talking with online in hopes of finding a cure. Samuel thinks he has something that may work, but he's not sure if it's a cure or just a temporary fix. It works in suppressing the Hulk, but Ross and Blonsky show up to capture Banner. Blonsky wants some of that Hulk action himself, so he makes Samuel give it to him, turning him into the Abomination, and turning Samuel into a tease. Hulk fights and defeats Abomination, and the movie ends with a drone shot through the mountains, a nice cup of tea, and our hero, who just caused tons of destruction, meditating to control their abilities. Let me start right at the beginning with the opening titles. This is where Hulk's origin story is relegated to, which I think is fine. I think it's a well enough known story, and giving a large chunk to it would just be a waste of time. However, the way this intro is edited and presented just feels cheap. It's choppy, oddly over-dramatized, and feels more like a low-budget independent film. It's not the most promising start to a blockbuster movie, and leaves you with a bad feeling of what's to come. Now, the plot itself is very plain, and I understand now why I didn't remember most of it. The parts I did remember were the parts I liked, so let's start with those. The chase scene through the Brazil city is really fun. The fight scene at the university provides some nice Hulk action, especially because it contains this golden moment. And even though the ending fight may be a little by the numbers, it's still cool to watch the Hulk use a car as boxing gloves. As far as the rest of the movie, it's just not that exciting. It feels like things just happen. One thing happens, then another thing happens, then another thing happens, and then the movie's over. It's odd pacing that makes the movie feel slow and a bit boring. Also, some of the dialogue is really odd and feels clunky.
God, he's doing it.
Speaking of dialogue, let's talk about how Bruce has a lack thereof. Seriously, this man does not talk. There were some stretches of the movie where Bruce doesn't say a single goddamn thing. It felt like his character was just there. And that brings me to what I think the most glaring issue is with this movie. The Hulk is the MacGuffin. He is what people are chasing. He is what drives the story forward. But the problem is, he drives other characters forward, not himself. It feels like all the other characters are the main forces driving the story, and Bruce is just standing there in the middle, getting pulled in whichever direction another character takes him. This is supposed to be his big movie. So why is it that he has virtually nothing to do with the story besides being the thing people want? His only motivation is get rid of the Hulk, which is fine, but not done in an exciting way. His arc is basically, I want to get rid of the Hulk. Maybe I can focus him, literal last shot of the movie, hey, I can control him and make a much more interesting movie. I think for a story about Bruce Banner and the Hulk, there is not enough focus on Bruce Banner and the Hulk. The dichotomy between those two entities is what makes them interesting. The idea of the mild-mannered, extremely smart and articulate Bruce Banner transforming into an uncontrollable, mindless brute against his will. How does he handle this? Can he balance it? Is it possible to control the Hulk? These questions were addressed in the Mark Ruffalo adaptation in the recent Marvel films, but I would have liked to see more of that in this movie. It's not all bad though. Let's talk about what I do like about this Bruce Banner. I personally like Norton's portrayal of the character, because I like Bruce Banner as a more serious, reserved guy who is really smart and uses his knowledge to problem solve. I don't think it's a perfect portrayal of the character, like I said, clunky dialogue and character motivations, but I enjoy the overall feel of his character. It's why Bruce Banner in the first Avengers specifically is my favorite portrayal of the character. He can make a joke and join in on the fun, but he's still very serious about his situation. He's smart, he has heart, he's perfect. Here's what Stan Lee had to say about the character of Bruce Banner for the 1977 live-action TV show.
You only actually saw the Hulk for, 5 or 6 minutes. The rest of the time, it was Bruce Banner, played by Bill Bixby as a very human, empathetic character that you cared about. So it was really an adult show about an interesting, complex hero with a lot of personal problems.
I still enjoy the more goofy version of him we see in later installments, but something about, haha, using my PhDs to fly this spaceship isn't as satisfying as him actually using his PhDs to solve a situation. Maybe I'm just boring, but I digress. Let's talk about the other characters now. Betty? Useless. Only there because they wanted to shove a love interest in. The random college student that coins the name Hulk has more impact on the story.
Huge, like Hulk. Yeah.
And don't forget that she cheats on Ty Burrell without remorse, which is unforgivable. And I don't think anybody has missed her character since. Also, quick side note, she sounds like Cindy from Scary Movie in this scene.
It's okay. It's okay. It's gonna be okay, Cody.
General Ross is probably the best character in the movie. His motivations are clear and unwavering. He plays a prick, and he plays it well. I think Tim Roth's Blonsky is good, nothing special, but he gets the job done as the arrogant badass soldier. Abomination is pretty cool. He is one of the original founders of Marvel's affinity to have the main villain have a similar power set to the hero. And I'll talk about his return in Shang-Chi in a bit. Samuel, aka the leader, was there primarily to be set up as the villain for a future film. And it did that well. Except we never got to see him again, and probably never will. But by far my favorite character, someone I completely forgot was in this movie, Stan Lee. Oh my god, this is the nicest old man ever. He has some serious Uncle Ben vibes. It's a shame we never got to see him again, because I genuinely freaking loved every second he was on screen. I just wanted to go to that pizza place, grab a slice, and have him give me life advice. Also, gotta mention the Lou Ferrigno cameo, it's one of my favorites in the MCU.
God bless you, brother.
Lastly, let's touch on how this movie fits into the larger MCU. Besides Bruce Banner, a character from this movie didn't make a return until General Ross appeared in 2016's Civil War, and he's been an increasingly large part of the MCU, having also appeared in Infinity War, Endgame, and Black Widow. This computer nerd is actually the same character we see in Spider-Man Homecoming, playing Peter's teacher, Roger Harrington. And of course, there's Abomination, who made a brief appearance in Shang-Chi. So, does this mean the Incredible Hulk is a critical piece of fabric woven into the MCU? Honestly, no. At least, not yet. As of right now, I would say you could skip this movie and still enjoy the rest of the MCU all the same. However, I think that's about to change. With Abomination confirmed to have a big role in She-Hulk, and General Ross rumored to be putting together the Thunderbolts, this movie could suddenly be very relevant, and that's very exciting. All this leads back to my initial question. Was the Incredible Hulk as bad as I remembered? No, it really wasn't. It was by no means amazing, and I definitely still think it's one of the weakest films in the MCU. But I had eased into that group mindset that this movie is trash and absolutely useless, and that's not fair or true. It's important to remember that this was the second MCU movie to come out, when the experiment was still dangerously fresh, and the formula was far from set. This is why I think this movie deserves more credit than Thor: The Dark World. The Incredible Hulk was trying to fit into a universe that didn't have a set standard to fit into yet, but it helped set that standard and started laying down important foundation that would help future films achieve success. Meanwhile, Dark World had everything going for it. Thor already had a solo movie, the first phase was completed with his return in the groundbreaking Avengers, they had plenty of time to create a unique and interesting story, and it language the bed. But I digress, back to the Hulk. If you haven't seen this movie, please watch it. And if you're rewatching all the Marvel movies, please don't skip it. It's a movie that can be enjoyed for what it is, and it's a great look back at the early days of the MCU. I can't wait to see where this 13-year-old movie takes us in the future. As long as Betty isn't there, I will never forgive her for what she did to Ty.